Hello, this is SleepGTube, where stories are read for relaxation. Find some peace or rest. But before that, please take a second to subscribe and hit that notification bell if you like what I do here. Story 1. What Dies Never Stays Dead by David Ockable. Sadiq saw his dead mother's face the moment he caught his reflection in the rearview mirror. Such apparitions had become habitual recently, a poignant reminder of ever-present absence. Like last week, he was seated on the beach, vibing to the rhythm of some old Fiji tunes, when Lionel Richie suddenly came on. For one, he did not possess any Lionel records, and the song was merely a part of an intrusive Spotify ad. Yet it conjured memories of her lifting voice belting to the bridge of Hello on a sensuous Saturday in September, a cherished fragment of his idyllic childhood. He termed these and many more past occurrences feel-good memories. They surfaced at the slightest provocation, triggered by the faintest echoes of his mother's essence, a hint of cinnamon in a friend's coffee, reminiscent of her signature brew, or the presence of the tattered remnants of the last prayer match he had lovingly concocted for him. Even now, as Sadiq languished in the embrace of his driver's seat, nervously chewing at the remnants of his cuticles, he acknowledged that seeing her face again, even for a second, cast a warm glow upon his soul. He was just a few weeks past 17 when the men in white took her away. Though he comprehended the concept of paramedics at that age, it was often easier to envision them as celestial beings, seraphs transporting her to some distant paradise for eternal rest, because he never saw her again, even while she was being planted in the looms of another man's land. If only she could see him, now, ensconced in the parking lot, wrestling with the prospect of forsaking the warmth of his car for the chill of St. Martin's Class of '98 reunion. He could almost hear her voice, gentle and wise, uttering her favorite Dan Millman quote in the Yoruba language. Okinalate, sakosa awana ero, okanelate, due chike mo, sakosa re. Which translates to you don't have to control your thoughts, you just have to stop letting them control you. She had been a devout Muslim, but her favorite speakers were bred from the opposing side. This single Christian quote was her parental counsel, whenever he was haunted by his inner vision. Although he was conquering these malevolent forces with no facile feat, he yearned to uncover an alternative method of asserting dominion over his tangled emotions and to ascribe meaning to the cacophony within. So he decided to say a prayer to infuse hope into the evening, an act she would have recommended. However, she attempted to grasp the pace of the beads of the Sabbath. They eluded his trembling fingers, and that was when he realized that maybe God wasn't as forgiving as they say. Perhaps today, as it had been for the past 25 years, he was left to face the demons of his past all by himself. The atmosphere in the sedan took on an ethereal quality as his mind traveled through it. His heartbeat reverberated like the echoes of the afternoon yam pounding in a mortar about to burst forth from his delicate ribcage. No way was he getting out of the car now, as he could hardly move. With the firm grip on the wheel and the vestiges of his rapidly dwindling composure, he shoved the cassette into the mouth of his car's audio player. "Are you ready, kids?" A man's voice emanated from the machine, coaxing participation. "Count with me, now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, he whispered, exhaling the numbers like steam escaping the smoldering throat. That was the second thing his mother would prescribe, to count with the man on the stereo. Even though he had owned the cassette before he knew what to count, he still chose to see the narrator as his mother had done, believing him to be a Tyrael, benevolent spirit that chases away with addition of preschool incantations. As the numbers in his mind resonated in harmony with the narrator's voice, Sadiq felt the world gradually yield to serenity, silencing the discord of his thoughts, manifesting the impatient horns of other drivers behind him. "That's enough," he screamed, at his reflection in the rearview mirror. "I heard you the first time." The blaring horn ceased abruptly, and his world fell silent again. Turning the ignition key, he parked near a solitary rose shrub. 21, 22, he continued, each number escaping his lips like a fervent prayer with every flattering step. He wanted this night to be quiet, utterly silent, devoid of the relentless clamor within his mind, but even he knew that was too much to ask for the angel in his car. Sadiq's return to his former high school stirred up the worst butterflies in his stomach. Been nothing short of 25 years since he last trod the scary house. Yet every nuance, every detail, and every face felt strange, still ever so familiar, like walking feet first into the belly of an abandoned cemetery. aware of the spectral gazes fixated upon him. He poured himself some fizzy punch and settled onto the cold, unforgiving bleachers, unchanged since his youth. Back then, during recess, when he would sit there alone, he would always wear a kerchief, especially one heated in his back pocket all day for that particular purpose. Now, all he had were a pair of chinos on his legs and a cup of something citrusy for warmth. "Is that alpaca?" he thought. He heard someone say close to him. "What?" Sadiq turned to see a younger man seated nearby, a cigarette dangling from his lips. His hair was trimmed in a crew cut to accentuate his smooth pink-blooded face, looking like a cartoon character come to life. "That's quite a fine sweater vest you got there," he reiterated with a yellow smile. "What is it, alpaca?" Sadiq coughed with every syllable. "Oh, this? It's a plain old sheep wool, I think. Got it on sale at Target." "Well, there ain't no Target around here, so I reckon you ain't from these parts," the man observed. "No. Drove in from the Big Apple, New York, for some work. Figured, why not revisit?" His voice had touched scorn. He feared the man would hear. "Ah, I see," the man nodded. "So where's the pie?" "Pie?" Sadiq chuckled at the old question. "Yeah, no. Since you come from an apple." "Aha, I thought there'd be," the man explained in a light-hearted tone. "Never mind." The two men laughed, and it didn't take long for the man from the countryside to offer Sadiq a cigarette in friendship. "No, thanks. I don't do that anymore." He declined, graceful enough to hide his disgust. "Anymore? What made you quit?" The man snuffed the last light from the butt in his mouth and lit another. "I don't want to talk about it," Sadiq murmured, massaging his chest. "Oh well. No, I'll have to smoke one more on your behalf," he said, and to Sadiq's surprise, he was bluffing. It's the gentleman thing to do, right? "You're something else, Jiminy." He laughed aloud, slowly getting used to the tobacco fog. "Just something else. But wait," the white man suddenly took on a severe expression. "How'd you know my name?" The music slowed down, and the world seemed to halt as Sadiq stared at every corner for an answer to the question directed at him. "What do you mean by it's right there?" he replied, unsure of the words spewing from his mouth. "On your name tag." The man looked 1 minute at Sadiq, then the next on his chest, and took a deep breath. "Wow, for a second there, I almost forgot about that," he chortled. "Like I'm telling you, I wouldn't lose my precious head if it weren't so to my body." "We were really in the same class at high school?" Sadiq asked. Wanted to change the subject. "Yeah, but I wasn't talkativism now." He listened to the man, joined to the timbre in his voice like the soothing voice of the western music. "Did a Tennessee Winnesley be the woodwork at the shop, though?" And that was it. "Yeah." Familiar tingling flowed through his pores as if looking through a mirror. "I was in the carpentry club all through the senior year, too, and it helped because now I was working construction as the kitchen cabinet maker." This time Sadiq was genuinely tickled by his humor. "Try engineering," he paused. "I'm Sadiq, by the way. Sadiq I will. And since you know my name already, it's pronounced Jiminy. Jiminy Barrett. You know we like that cricket in Pinocchio?" Jiminy, something about you feels so familiar," Sadiq was propelled to say, "like we've met before." "Well, the world is only about a village, so you never know." There in the gym hall soon got drenched in beer and sweat as the party lasted through the night. Clothes started coming off the bodies of their owners. Soon everyone forgot that they were only a few years away from middle age. After several glasses of his drink, even Sadiq got himself in a party mood and began to let his guard down a little. It was only a matter of time before he made his angst step aside to watch and break some moves on the floor. Tonight was going well, and he couldn't imagine himself anywhere else until bang! Sadiq's response was primal. He yelped like a wounded animal, diving for cover beneath the bleacher seats. His mind raced to dark places as he tightly shut his eyes, fearing the worst. But the chaos subsided as quickly as it erupted, leaving an eerie silence behind. There was no noise, screams, or shots, so he looked. Slowly, he peeked out from his hiding place, only to be met with the raucous laughter of the party-goers, who found his reaction absurd. The explosion had been nothing more than the pop of a champagne cork. He immediately ran into the bathroom, washed in his embarrassment as they all returned to courtesy. Then he turned to Jiminy, who had followed him in, said, "Can I have that smoke now?" "Say no more, my friend." Jiminy shoved the cigarette stick between Sadiq's lips and lit it in seconds. "You know, I get it, how you feel. I mean, I've not also been myself ever since that fateful day." "Doomsday?" Sadiq threw a puzzled look his way. "Yeah, I guess that's what they call it now." Jiminy coughed for the first time after his fifth stick. Such a trivial name for a momentous morning. I mean, for people like us who lost someone that day, it's not something for you to easily recover from. Jiminy. Sadiq blinked twice at his reflection at the white, his eyes stained veiny crimson. "How did you know about my mom?" Jiminy watched him in the dark eyes as he hit the floor. "Silly boy," he chided. "You were not the only kid who lost someone that day." Sadiq immediately flung the cigarette in his hands, but everything had already gone wrong. "Help me, Jiminy. I can't feel anything." "Isn't that what you've always wanted?" Jiminy said without his accent. "I'm giving you the ultimate gift, Sadiq. but it's such a shame that you still don't know what to do with it. And with that, Sadiq was out like a candle, but his mind was not. When the body goes out, it searches for any form of consciousness, anything to keep you alive. And once it finds one, it all comes rushing back from the deepest caves of your mind. And the scars you thought had been healed haunt your dreams with a fresh wound. Sadiq was about to experience such a fate, but the problem remained. The years being away weren't enough to prepare him for all that was to come. The moment Sadiq walked into the dimly lit office, a peculiar breeze, both familiar and forgotten, washed over him. Everything was as exact as the clouded mind could recall, paying attention to even the slightest details, from the dust-laden mahogany desk to condescending smile on his principal's face as he closed the door behind him. Even the muffled screams of children echoing directly from the halls all merged seamlessly into the present as if the past never unraveled. Sadiq! Sadiq! The woman sitting from across him called his attention. Please tell your mother why she is here, Sadiq. Filling with a workshop screwdriver as if it was a stress ball, instantly felt the vulnerability of his 17-year-old self resurface within the confines of his subconscious. His mother looked stunning from where she sat, in her blue Ankara, print dress, red coral beads, and soft makeup, concealing the fury that lurked behind her eyes. He knew he couldn't hold her gaze for too long because he understood that unspoken power of eye contact, a trait ingrained by his Nigerian upbringing. The thing is, he began to speak when, Madame Principal, my son is a good boy. My mother interjected, fighting traces of a stubborn Yoruba accent that erased any evidence of a naturalization. I know exactly what he can and cannot do, but Mom, it was, and he is capable of so many things, but this, the mother paused, fixated on the cigarette stick unknown to Sadiq, which had been on the desk the entire time. This is not one of them. Mrs. Adewale, I am well aware of your son's abilities. The principal beamed with pride. He is a grade A student who helps a lot around the school, like here. She points to a safe made of oak, wood, and glass in her office. He made this himself for my office. Isn't it just the prettiest thing? What's your point? His mother interrupted. My point is we should hear what he has to say first. After all, is this an intervention or an indictment? There was a moment of thick silence as Sadiq grappled with constructing a defense. Mom, the cigarettes weren't mine. He started, but his mother, triumphant in her assumption, cut him off again. Ehin! I said. But I was smoking them. This information took her aback. Wiping the smile clean off her face, he could feel her broken heart asking why, but the silence was the safest answer he could give. What else could he have said? That a gang of jocks on the football team had shoved it in his mountain one day, burning him to see if his skin could get any darker? But then, a tiny voice in his head would echo 5 haunting words to him. But you like the aftertaste? And who was he to blame then? Could you blame the weight of the mother's nativity? She held on to his father's last name, like a slippery gemstone, holding on to a love that chose not to hold her. And her unborn son, she would scold him in her mother's tongue, whenever it got anything less than a B-. Nekbati, Obasia, Sakatakana, Takale, Hale, Nacho, Hawacho, Babla, Radna, Wa, oh. Was her exact words, but deep down, he knew that no amount of success would bring the original Mr. Adewale back into their lives. On the one hand, he hated to see her suffer like that every day, like sitting at the crotch of a fig tree and watching it wither while she starved to death. On the other hand, his youth was all he had to offer, which had been enough for him. What is this noise all about? The principal exclaimed as the sound stopped from the office turned into a riot. Excuse me for a minute. She walked out to inspect the hallway, happy to exit the tension she had created. His mother stood from across the window. Starting the street below, he knew she was crying but didn't know how to approach her. Suddenly, during the tense silence, the lights went out. Something was wrong, but none of them knew what it was. Then, the lights went out. Something was wrong, but none of them knew what it was. Then shots filled the air like fireworks on the 4th of July. Sadiq, Kenyan! His mother asked. He didn't have an answer, giving him reason to fear. Instinct quickly set in, and Sadiq decided for the rush to the door. But it was too late, and a man kicked it away from his hands and off the hinges. He was tall and dressed in black, and the scar on his right eye gave them both chills. He effortlessly pulled a gun from his trousers, like it didn't weigh so much, and for the first time in his life, Sadiq was afraid. Kiniate me, his mother asked the man with the lump in her throat. She stepped before her son, trying to protect him from the demon before them, but her skinny demeanor was too frail a barricade. Trust me. Oh no, Murada, Ali, you don't want to do this. She spoke again to the man, but he wasn't listening. He was too busy staring at the oaks box in the corner. Then he pulled Sadiq by the elbow with the gun pointed directly to his temple. His mother fell like a worshiper to the ground, praying to the man in the black like he was Allah. Sadiq's life flashed before his eyes in a marathon for a second. He thought it had ended. Who would have thought he'd go out this way, stopped from existence by the hands of a school shooter? Then he felt a sharp prick, like the scythe of the Grim Reaper, only to realize it was a screwdriver. same screwdriver that he had been toying with all through the intervention. So, he reached for the tool from his pocket without considering the consequences and jabbed it deep into the stranger's marked eye. The man fell with a thud, as his weapon slid far enough to lay at Sadiq's feet. He had touched guns before, toy guns, he used while playing cowboy with his friends on the street, but this was real life, and there he was, holding a real weapon in all its cold and weighty majesty. Times moved quickly. When one was about to pull the trigger on another, you watched the horror of death mold on their faces, as adrenaline rushes from their teenage spine to the top of your head. And sometimes you forget to look, left with only the sound of fired shots and drive squeals from memory. Sound so strong that it jolts you back to your consciousness after a neurotic breakdown and leaves you with more questions than you can afford. Memory, a clever deity, gives us the ultimate gift to write our own stories, choosing what we want to remember and what we'd rather forget. You're awake, Jimmy stood over him, watching with an unreasonable expression as he helplessly struggled with the fabric that bound his hands and feet. No one else was in the room, and he could feel the silence prick through the skin. Where is everybody? Sadiq's voice clipped through the quiet, echoing his confusion. I should be asking you the same question. Where did everybody go? Jiminy switched from a not-so-funny cowboy to a calm and calculated psychopath scared Sadiq even more. Jiminy was now had a fresh scar in his right eye, and his laughter remained tinged with a hidden sorrow. You're crazy, Sadiq stuttered. You know that, right? You, sir, are a crazy person. And who are you to judge? Jiminy moved away, his words hanging in the air. We are the same person, Sadiq. As your mother used to say, one is only a thief once they get caught. And you have lived your life for so long without getting caught. But hopefully it ends today. Jiminy paused for a while, looking out the window, just as Sadiq's mother did in his dream. It was then Sadiq realized they were both in the principal's office. Can you please not bring my mom into this? Sadiq freed courage into his resolve. Shh. I'm about to tell a story, and I don't want you to miss the best part. Jiminy obstructed without looking his way. I wasn't always this crazy, you know, he continued. I was once an innocent lad who lived in the shadows, doing his master's every bidding. Then, one day, his master went to school and never returned the same. He paused again, watching Sadiq through the reflective window glasses struggle with restraint. You do remember my master, don't you? I don't know what you're talking about, okay? You got the wrong guy, Sadiq said, almost losing his cool. Jiminy laughed and walked back up to him with a motionless gaze, with only a few feet between them. He pulled out a gun from the waist of his jeans. Now, do you remember him? Sadiq started trembling in his seat like a leaf caressed by the wind. This time he answered with a choked-up whimper and a nod from side to side. But Jiminy wasn't buying any of it. He cocked the gun and brought it closer, speaking even louder, ready to shoot through the holes of his ears. How about now? Surely this should ring a bell. I don't know your master. I swear, Sadiq's cries echoed through the whole school. You have to believe me. But didn't you say you saw him in the principal's office that day? Jiminy reminded him, shoving a gun back to where it came from. No, I didn't, he whimpered. Yes, you did, at the hearing of all those years ago. You said that the man walked in on you and your mom, and he tried to shoot you first. Is that right? Enough, Jiminy. That was eons ago. How can I remember any of that stuff now? Oh, but you remembered it just fine back then. Jiminy ignored his plea, leaving Sadiq confused about whether he meant his dream or the court hearing. You remembered how she stepped in front of you, taking a bullet to her heart instead. Please stop it. I can't, he was crying at this point. And then he knocked you out with his gun before he made an escape. He paused, pleased with the torment he was inflicting. How convenient, don't you think, or isn't that what happened, Sadiq? I wasn't the only one who survived that day, Sadiq replied, confident with the Jimmy would come back 2 steps ahead. But you were the only one who saw his face and lived to tell the story. Please, I'm begging you. You have to stop this. That's enough. Jiminy gave a brief pause to Sadiq's plea as if about to consider it when, you know what's funny? He didn't wait for an answer. That is exactly what one of those high school football players said right before all 3 of them were blasted into the bathroom wall. The New York Times called them innocent children that had their futures ripped away from them by tragedy. None of the kids were innocent. Sadiq hissed in retaliation. They all got what they deserved. Really, and what about the others? He asked. But Sadiq remained silent again. And your mother? For the last time, I warned you. Don't bring my mother into this, Sadiq was visibly pissed, a part of him wondering how Jiminy knew so much. They both heard a commotion outside of police sirens chased the silent night away. But she has always been a part of this, remember? Even today she came in with you before you got here, Jiminy said, maintaining a calm demeanor out of spite. Just to tell the truth, Sadiq, it's what she would want. I said that is enough, Sadiq yelled. Finally free from his bondage with lightning speed, he rushed to where Jiminy was, violently pinning him to the window. Then suddenly a pair of officers kicked the door open, spreading dust through the air, hands where I could see them. They yelled at the top of their lungs, their weapons pointing directly at Sadiq. What took you so long, officers? Sadiq turned to meet their eyes. I thought I would have to hold him off forever. Hold who? One of the officers asked. Him! Sadiq turned to the window, but there was no one there. I don't understand. There was a party and a chimney was here. Everybody. There's nobody here except us, sir, the policeman said nicely, and he was right. The hall was dark and empty, and no air balloon was hanging on the wall. Jesus Christ! The other officer noticed something else. Do you need something for that? For what? Your right eye is throbbing. Sadiq instantly surveyed his reflection through the glass window. At first he saw nothing. Then diving his hands into his pocket, he put his reading glass on. Suddenly there was a scar on his right eye, as fresh as it had been when he first got it. Please just get me out of here, he exhaled, bringing his wrists forward to be cuffed. And so they drove him to the station to their beamer. The radio turned to the highest volume. Are you ready, kids? Count with me now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Counted along with the voice as they drove past his high school. It was nice to be in a car again, he thought. Glossary. You don't have to control your thoughts. You just have to stop letting them control you. The end.